welcome back. I hope that your day has been great. I hope it's been as smiley face as mine. Hope you've had a great one. I know that I just so enjoy getting a chance to talk to you about this because as a writer, I love so much writing. You would understand that. But the thing I don't know if everybody understands is that we also so much enjoy talking to people about the books we've written, about their own writing. So this is super fun for me, and I hope that you're enjoying it too. So let's carry on with where we left off with Pixie Pushes On. I have a summary from Andrew, and Andrew is going to summarize the last two chapters we read, which were 6 and 7. And he says, Pixie got to go see Charlotte at Riley Hospital, but when they got there, they could not see her except from a window. Pixie got a letter from Charlotte where she talked about how painful the first few weeks were. She also talked about the disease polio and the iron lungs some people need. She told Pixie that if she wanted to, she could use her princess costume this Halloween, but she didn't know that all her clothes had been burned. And that is a great summary. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you so much. So that is where we left off. Now we are going to continue on with Chapter 8 of Pixie Pushes On. I was right. Grandma said the clown costume still had life in it, and she had nothing else to offer. But it's so scratchy and it's too small, I complained when I tried it on. Grandma inspected me from head to toe. Does look like you've grown a foot, doesn't it? She clucked her tongue, cocked her head to one side as my hope grew that she was seeing my side of it for once. Unfortunately, it didn't last. But with the wartime rations, we just don't have the material. Once Grandma starts talking wartime rations, I know I shouldn't even try to argue. But I still do. Maybe you could cut up an old dress or something. Grandma gasped. Oh! Now I should put scissors to one of my dresses so you can wear it for one day. It's not your wedding, Prudence Ann. It's just Halloween. She shook her head, and there's no extra money right now. What about the piggy bank? I remembered the coffee can Daddy put on the kitchen counter last month, telling us it was now the farm's piggy bank. Couldn't we use some of that money? I reckon when your daddy said that was for improvements around here, he wasn't talking about costumes. She patted my shoulder, which was already itching under the too tight costume. This will do just fine. So on Halloween, there I was at school, dressed as an itchy, overgrown clown. After lunch, there was a party in the gym with paper skeleton, pumpkin decorations, cookies, and punch. I was sitting by myself eating a cookie when Rotten Ricky walked up to me. I'd managed to avoid him since that day in the closet, as he'd been absent for a couple of weeks. When he returned to school, he seemed quieter, but I figured him to still be as rotten. He was wearing his usual clothes. All around us stood ghosts and witches and cowboys and cats, but there he was, looking like it was just any old day of the year. I really couldn't have cared less, but I had to ask, why aren't you dressed up? Rotten Ricky blushed a bit and then puffed up his chest, reminding me of Teacher before he answered, Halloween stinks. I don't know why that bothered me. What with Charlotte gone and my awful costume, I wasn't feeling particularly fond of Halloween myself. But when Rotten Ricky said those very words, I felt myself bristling like he'd insulted my kin. What do you mean, stinks? He shrugged. Just does. Well, maybe you stink. He sighed the way Grandma sighs sometimes. Then he looked away from me as he said, I just come over to tell you Miss Beanie says it's our turn to help at the children's table. I'd forgot we all had to take turns cutting out and coloring jack-o'-lanterns with the first and second graders. But how'd I forget I was assigned to help them with Rotten Ricky? Miss Beanie'd been nice enough to me the last week or so that I decided Granddaddy was right and I stopped calling her Meanie Beanie, but I hadn't changed my mind about Ricky. Prudence, Ricky, Miss Beanie said, you'll have so much fun helping the children cut these darling jack-o'-lanterns. Before I could ask her why we might like that so much, Big Mouth Berta practically danced over to the table in her perfect princess costume. Miss Beanie, do you want me to help? I'd be happy to help. Berta, you're so thoughtful to ask, Miss Beanie told her. But maybe you can go to the Bobbing for Apples bucket and help there. This year we're using blindfolds and letting the children use their hands to reach into the water instead of using the usual bobbing, since everyone's worried about the threat of polio. With that, Miss Beanie put her hand to her mouth, like she'd said a bad word. Oh, sorry, Prudence, I didn't mean. It's okay, I'm okay, I told her, even though my cheeks had started burning and I didn't feel okay at all, especially when Berta kept talking. How about if Prudence helps over at the Bobbing for Apples bucket, she said. Seems to me her clown costume is better suited for that job than my princess one. As much as I didn't want to be stuck with Rotten Ricky, even more I didn't want Berta to get her way. I stepped closer to Ricky. Me and Berta probably looked like two hunting dogs fighting over who cornered the raccoon. Not sure how long we stood like that, but it was long enough for Rotten Ricky's cheeks to blush a deep shade of red. Lucky for me, Miss Beanie was as stubborn as Berta. I'll go with you to help you get settled over there, Berta, she told her. I'm sure your lovely princess dress will be fine. I tried not to smile too much as I watched Miss Beanie lead her across the room. By the time I turned back to the table, a little girl dressed as a cat was hugging Ricky. Hey, Betsy, or should I say, hey, Kitty, he said, and with that the little girl began meowing. Hey, Clown, can you help me? A voice behind me said. I turned to find a first-grade boy holding a jack-o'-lantern, scribbled with blue crayon. Tommy, right? He smiled at me, remembering his name, and nodded. Don't you want your jack-o'-lantern to be orange like everyone else's? Why would I want it to look like everyone else's? Tommy asked, and I didn't have a great answer for that. As I sat with Tommy helping him cut out his blue pumpkin, I listened to Rotten Ricky and Betsy, who I soon learned was his little sister. Mama says she won't take us into town to go trick-or-treating tonight, Ricky, but you'll take me, right? I just gotta go trick-or-treating. I never been before. Oh, please, Ricky, there's a party at church, too. Please talk to Mama, please. Why won't your Mama take you trick-or-treating? I asked Betsy. No reason, Rotten Ricky mumbled. But Betsy seemed to know a reason. Mama's been extra sad since Daddy left, and now that Billy's in the... Betsy, that's enough. Don't go telling our family business to everyone. Betsy stuck out her bottom lip in a pout. I wasn't telling our family business. I was telling my business. I can't go trick-or-treating because Mama's sad about Daddy being gone and Billy being in the war. She never wants to do anything, and that's not fair. Tears started rolling down her face. Rotten Ricky looked like he might be fighting back a few of his own tears, and so I felt the need to look away. But I could still hear him comforting his sister. It's okay, I promise. Somehow in my head, those words started mixing with Granddaddy's words about not deciding who someone is before they have a chance to show you. And at that moment, Ricky didn't seem so rotten anymore. So Pixie had a little aha moment where you just say, okay, I think there's a lesson here. And she was smart enough to see it. Sometimes these aha moments come to us and we aren't smart enough to see it. But I think that the lesson she learned was that everybody's going through something. So we learned in that chapter that Ricky's dad has left, and we realized that his brother is in the war. Remember, World War II was going on at this time. And so it seems to be that their mama is not dealing with it too well. They say that she's very sad all the time and can't quite do the things she used to do. So Pixie, to her credit, has started to realize, oh, maybe he's not so rotten anymore. Maybe she didn't just give him a chance earlier. So we probably all need to remember that, don't we? That the person we think is not being nice to us for some reason, or the person we just think maybe is just so different than us, maybe they're going through something that we don't know. So good for Pixie for realizing that. Chapter 9. A cold November wind blew against me as I brought the egg basket to Grandma after school. Wearing my mittens made it safer to get the eggs from Teacher, but it sure didn't make that grumpy old hen any more pleasant. I'd hoped to warm up inside beside the fire, but Grandma said Granddaddy could use help with the firewood. Walking toward the sound of Granddaddy's chopping, I spied Daddy out in the field. It turned out that Daddy liked working on the farm and was real handy. Staying busy all the time seemed to suit him. It suited him so much that lots of days I'd barely see him. "Afternoon, Pixie," Granddaddy said between firewood chops. "How was school?" "Okay," I answered. "What's Daddy doing out there? I thought the crops were all done, what with it being so cold." "Harvesting the field corn. It grows later than sweet corn, and it isn't for our eating. It's for the livestock and chickens." Even though I shivered in the cold, I noticed the beads of sweat on Granddaddy's forehead from all the axe swinging. I began stacking the cut wood in the wheelbarrow. "Careful there," Granddaddy said, as he nodded toward the extra big pile of wood I was planning to move to the wood box up by the house. "It's fine," I told him. But as soon as I turned the wheelbarrow around, the dang thing fell to its side, spilling every last log out of the ground. The next time, I put half the wood in the wheelbarrow and made 2 trips. When I returned, Granddaddy was wiping his forehead with his handkerchief. "Sometimes, Pixie, we make things harder than they need to be." I knew he was talking about more than wood in a wheelbarrow. Some people talk to me like I'm just out of diapers, but not Granddaddy. I like how he talks to me like I have opinions. "I suppose I might do that sometimes," I said. "But it's awful cold out. How much more chopping do you have to do?" Granddaddy motioned to the already chopped wood. "This here wouldn't get us very far in a usual winter, and this winter's fixin' to be a bad one." "How do you know it's going to be so bad?" I asked. "Crab apples," he told me. "What?" I smiled, figuring this was going to turn into a story. "Every time there's lots of crab apples on the trees in the fall, winter's going to be tough." "You can tell that just by looking at the crab apples." "Well, no. I also look for the rabbits," Granddaddy said as he began helping me stack the wood in the wheelbarrow. "And what do the rabbits tell you?" "They're fattening up and telling me this coming winter's going to be colder than Grandma's homemade ice cream." I laughed. "How do they tell you that?" "Well, Pixie, if the rabbits are fat now, it's 'cause they know winter's going to be a long one. When we pay attention to nature, it can tell us a lot. So I'll pay attention and chop a little bit longer every day to get us through to at least Thanksgiving." At the mention of the holiday, my stomach sank, and it felt like the legs toppling over again, but this time on me. I shook my head. "I don't think we should celebrate Thanksgiving this year." Granddaddy snorted. "Now don't tell me you aren't looking forward to Grandma's pumpkin pie." But that wasn't it. Of course I love eating all Grandma's yummy Thanksgiving food, but should we, with everything that's happened, maybe we shouldn't be celebrating. Granddaddy motioned toward the fields. "Maybe we can borrow another lesson from those rabbits." "Come on, Granddaddy. The rabbits can't tell us to celebrate Thanksgiving." "In a way they can." He sat on the chopping stump, and I hopped on next to him. "See, those rabbits get as fat as possible for the winter, 'cause they know food will be hard to find, what with all the plants dying and being covered in snow. But when those hungry rabbits find a patch of food, don't you suppose they treasure that?" "I suppose so," I said. "But that still doesn't mean we should be giving thanks while Charlotte's in the hospital and not with us." Well, Pixie said. Well, Pixie, don't you think we should give thanks for a right fine hospital that's helping your sissy get better? And shouldn't we give thanks for what we have left?" I wasn't ready to admit that Granddaddy and those dang rabbits were probably right. All I could think of was that each Thanksgiving that rolled around left us with one less family member to give thanks for, and I didn't like that at all. And that is the end of Chapter 9. So we have a little bit more knowledge about Pixie and her family and sweet Granddaddy and all of his little beliefs that he has and all his wisdom that he has. So we have a little bit more of an insight into their household now too, with Grandma and making her tell her that she needs to wear the costume. I mean, I think that some people want to say that, well, grandma must be really grumpy, but I think that grandma's just one of those people that knows how to run things, and so she is just being very serious about things. So I modeled her a little bit after my own grandma, because she wasn't the warm and fuzzy type, but I never doubted that she loved me. She got her job done, and she loved her family very well. But I think some people aren't warm and fuzzy, and that's one of the things I hope to show here too, is that everybody shows their love in different ways, and Grandma's way was making sure everybody was fed and taken care of in a very no-nonsense kind of way. And Granddaddy's way is a little bit more warm and fuzzy with some really sweet wisdom thrown in too. So we're going to leave off there today. I hope that you continue to read along with me. I hope that you're continuing to do well. If you have any questions, if you have a summary you'd like to send to me, if you have any similes, metaphors like we've talked about in the past that you want to share with me, I would love to hear them. I would love to see them. Send them to me at my email address. And until next time, I will say have a great rest of the day. Be safe and continue to smile. Keep reading. Bye.